Hi, this is Daryl Meyer from Callard, Texas. Today is Monday, June 7th, 2010. Let's have a look, see what's going on in the news today. This first story out of Israel.com, or IsraelToday.com, says the Palestinians admit that Gaza is not starving and Hamas steals aid. It says in the wake of the Gaza flotilla incident, anti-Israel activists around the world have worked to boost their message that the Gaza Strip is the most destitute place on earth, where famine and plague rule. But remarks by Palestinians living in Gaza to international media outlets covering the aid flotilla story paint a very different picture. There is no starvation in Gaza. No one has died of hunger, says Khalil Hamada, a senior official at Gaza's Ministry of Justice, he told London's Daily Telegraph. Sticking to the Hamas party line, though, he went on to criticize Israel's embargo as inhumane and brutal. So since much of the international media ignores Palestinians when they admit Israel isn't so bad, Israel itself tried to counter the misinformation regarding the Gaza embargo by publishing figures showing how much aid enters into the territory. According to the figures released by Israel's Foreign Ministry, the first quarter of 2010, that's January through March of this year, 94,500 tons of supplies passed through Israel's border crossings with Gaza. That aid included 40,000 tons of wheat, that's equal to 53 million loaves of bread, 2,760 tons of rice, or 69 million servings, 1,987 tons of clothes, that's equal to 3.6 million pairs of jeans, and 553 tons of milk powder and baby food. And it's not just essential goods Israel provides. During the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, late last year, Israel brought 11,000 head of cattle into Gaza, enough for 8.8 million meals of beef. The problem is that most of these goods never reach average Gazans. It's a long-time policy of the Palestinians and wider Arab leadership to maintain a victim or refugee status among average Palestinians. Gaza resident Zaid Kadar acknowledged as much in an interview with Germany's Der Spiegel. People who are not in with Hamas don't see any of the relief goods or the gifts of money Hamas supporters get. Prefabricated housing, furnishings, and paid work. He says we get nothing. Bet you won't hear that on Fox News. Here's another story. Iranian Navy threatens to break Israel blockade. The Iranian Red Crescent today announced that it had 2 aid ships ready to sail for Gaza to break Israel's maritime blockade, and Iran's Revolutionary Guard offered to send its forces to thwart any Israeli attempt to intercept the vessels. You know, they have the blockade there for a reason. Why are all these nations trying to provoke them? So Turkey wants to send military ships. Iran wants to send military ships. Okay, you want to go provoke Israel on their coast with military ships? You better be ready for a fight, Iran and Turkey, because your military boats won't get through either. They have every right to defend their nation and protect their citizens from people like you. Sorry, it's the way it's going. Here's another story you probably won't hear much of. Israeli students plan counter flotilla to Turkey. The National Students Union of Israel is planning to launch a counter flotilla to carry aid to oppressed minorities in Turkey in a bid to unmask the hypocrisy of the international community, and especially Ankara, in the wake of Israel's raid on the Free Gaza flotilla. Boaz Torperovsky, chairman of the Students' Union, told Ynet that Turkey, which leads the campaign against Israel and makes all sorts of threats, is the same Turkey that carried out a Holocaust and murdered an entire nation of Armenians and oppresses a minority larger than the Palestinians, the Kurds, who deserve a state, who have demanded a state for longer than the state of Israel has existed. It's the Kurdish minority in Turkey that the group will try to reach with primary medical supplies. This guy says he knows the boats will be stopped by the Turkish authorities, which will hopefully reverse the negative attention on Israel. He said this group is currently seeking a suitable vessel and enough funding to carry out its plans. Eric Ofer, a former naval officer and current business owner, has agreed to captain the ship. The group hopes to sail by the end of the week. We'll see how that goes. Here's another story. Palestinian Muslims who reject violence are persecuted. there's this little known group of Palestinian Arabs called the Ahmadiyya. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's a sect of Islam, has come under increased persecution. The Ahmadi Muslims follow the teachings of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, who they believe to have been the Muslim Messiah. They reject the use of violence in all cases and believe that mainstream Islam has been distorted into a bloodthirsty religion. For their beliefs, they are labeled as apostates, and they are stripped of their rights in court, meaning they have no legal recourse, and they're basically infidels. There's another story that says the Turkish PM vows to personally break Israeli blockade. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. They're planning on sending Navy gunships to accompany the next flotilla, as is Israel. This is not a good thing. They're simply provoking Israel. That's all they're doing. Okay, here's a story, and let me just say, Mark, don't hate me for this one, okay, brother? I'm just bringing the news. This is out of Prophecy News Watch. It says the Vatican condemns Christian fundamentalist unwavering support of Israel. They've got this document they just released that's going to criticize Israel, Egypt, Islam, and even Christian fundamentalists. The 46-page text, The Catholic Church in the Middle East, Communion and Witness, serves as a working document for an October meeting at the Vatican about the Mideast. Here's what the Pope says. Again, Mark, don't hate the messenger. The Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories is creating difficulties in everyday life, inhibiting freedom of movement, the economy, and religious life, the document says. Moreover, certain Christian fundamentalist theologies use sacred scriptures to justify Israel's occupation of Palestine. This is the Pope. He goes on to say, in Egypt, the rise of political Islam on the one hand and the disengagement of Christians forcefully at times from civil society on the other lead to severe difficulties. So the Vatican's trying to improve relations with the Muslim world, but Sunday's document said the dialogue between Christianity and Islam is never easy. Listen, and let me just reiterate, don't put your faith in some kind of man's religion. Put your faith in Jesus Christ. That's the only way anyone can be saved. And I'm running long, so I'm going to skip some of these stories. There were some other things I wanted to talk about, but this is just, it's getting out of hand. The Ground Zero Mosque, this guy, the Muslim cleric behind this, is a pro-Hamas Free Gaza movement. The cleric's name is Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf, and I would watch this guy. Okay, it looks like the sun, this is out of prophecynewswatch.com, NASA says the sun is about to unleash some serious high levels of solar activity. It's going to cause a lot of problems. This is out of Prophecy News Watch also. An Afghan parliamentarian calls for the execution of all Christian converts from Islam. An Afghan parliamentary secretary has called for public execution of Christian converts. And this is a leader in the government of Afghanistan saying, let's kill all the people that convert to Christian. Oof, it's the kind of world we're living in, people. On that note, let's talk about that. I live in America, the supposedly land of the free, but I see my freedoms disappearing more and more every day. I want to talk about persecution, because guess what? It's coming to all of us. Of all the nations on the earth, the United States of America has seemed to be the last place where the persecution of Christians would be performed, but it's no longer such a far-fetched idea. We're seeing all kinds of changing attitudes, political, cultural, spiritual, and economic, that will pretty much put evangelical Christians in the crosshairs of American society. A lot of you have already faced this kind of challenges at work, or at school, or your kids' school, or with your neighbors or family. Political correctness is now even a problem, and it won't be long probably before politically incorrectness will land a fine or a jail term. We must stand up and speak boldly for the gospel of Jesus Christ. I want to talk about that. You can read about Stephen in Acts 6 and 7. He was one of the first people persecuted for Christianity. Actually, let me start with Matthew 10:22, where Jesus said, all men will hate you because of me, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. Do not give in to people persecuting you for your beliefs. Matthew 10:19 through 20, Jesus says, but when they arrest you, don't worry about what you're going to say, because at that time the Holy Spirit will be speaking through you. So trust in that. Let me go to... Oh gosh, I can already see I'm going to run out of time. So, this man Stephen, he was hated for speaking about Jesus. They stoned him to death, and they laid his garments at the foot of Saul, who became one of the greatest apostles of all time, Paul the apostle, who has probably saved more people since his death than anyone else in history. Let me just say, this persecution will be coming for probably all of us, but don't fear that, because God told us it would happen through the words of Jesus. Let me read Acts 2:21. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Trust that. God bless you.